Good afternoon and welcome to week 4 of Change Leadership. There's just a couple of things that I want to mention at the beginning of this week. One is that your work this week is limited in that you have a discussion forum with your team members to determine the current event that you will be using for your analysis for your team project. I am not allowing you to use the COVID-19 pandemic. We've talked about that quite a bit throughout the course. Instead, I want you to choose something that is within an organization other than the government, something that is in recent news from the past few months about an event in an organization that lets you know that change is afoot. You will then go in and analyze using the iceberg model, the event, pattern, structure, mindset. You'll be looking at the archetype diagrams and so forth. So that's something that you need to do this week, choosing that current event within an organization. Secondly, you need to, as early in the week as possible, watch the movie Pleasantville. I've given you a number of locations where that can be accessed. You will need to likely pay a rental fee, but it is not terribly expensive to watch that movie. Watch it early enough in the week so that you can take the quiz this week. It's like a midterm quiz. You will be analyzing Pleasantville by looking at complex adaptive systems theory. You'll be looking at the archetypes that you see. You'll be using the paradigm principles from the video that you watched last week to analyze the film. So you'll need to apply knowledge gained in the first 3 weeks of the class, a good bit of that knowledge, as you analyze the movie. So give yourself time to watch it and think it through before you complete the quiz this week. One other thing that I wanted to mention was that a number of the archetypes overlap a bit, and two in particular are somewhat confusing in terms of their differences, and that is shifting the burden and fixes that fail. Shifting the burden is not fixes that fail. Shifting the burden is when an organization does not develop internal capacity to deal with its own issues. And because they rely on some other resource other than developing those internal capacities, they've shifted the burden and they do not develop the internal capacities that they need. An example in your reading, I forget whether it's in the workbook or in the singing text, is an organization that continues to rely on external consultants rather than develop their own internal capacity. And when they no longer want to continue to budget for external consultants, or consultants raise their rates, they have no place else to go because they never develop the internal capacity. And so they're caught in a bind with having shifted the burden over to the external consultants rather than having developed the internal capacity. On a personal level, you could look at shifting the burden as someone who has terrible migraine headaches, and rather than having learned to de-stress, learned how to meditate, learned how to breathe, they become over-reliant on medications to allow them to continue to work under stressful conditions, and then they develop other side effects. They did never develop their own capacity to moderate their own stress, or to be able to work in the kind of environment that they find themselves. And so they shifted the burden onto the medication. It's a little different than a fix that fails. A fix that fails is a short-term fix, and often there is knowledge that a long-term fix is needed, but there's neither the time nor the resources. And so a Band-Aid is applied, a quick fix is applied. And yeah, because it's working, they don't go back to the long-term solution until they spring a leak or the Band-Aid is no longer working. So it's a little bit different. It's not about a capacity that isn't being developed. It's about a long-term problem that's getting a short-term solution. And that short-term solution runs out of time. Whereas the short-term solution in and of itself was not the issue. If they had used that time that the short-term solution gave them to go ahead and work on a longer-term solution. I hope that helps in terms of the difference between those two. Make sure as you're doing your analysis of the movie Pleasantville that you apply all the appropriate archetypes. Make sure you understand them as you're applying them. And also you'll need to understand them as you begin to work on your group project together. I think that's all I have for week 4. Again, as always, please do not hesitate to contact me. We can either chat by email or schedule a phone conference if that's needed. But again, please make sure that you watch that movie early in the week so you can get the quiz done. If you wait till the end of the week, haven't watched the movie yet, you'll be late on completing the quiz. So I hope you have a great week. As always, prayers and good thoughts are sent your way during this time. Take care.